The classroom was quiet except for the sound of fingers tapping on keyboards and the occasional shuffle of papers. Jeon Jungkook, both class presidents, were sitting side by side at a desk, entering the names of students interested in joining various clubs. Jungkook was focused, reading off the information for you to type in, his brows slightly furrowed in concentration. But you, on the other hand, were less focused on the task and more on him. The way his hair fell over his forehead, the sharpness of his jawline, and how his shirt subtly highlighted the muscles in his arms, it was all incredibly distracting. You found yourself blushing, your heart fluttering as you admired him. Suddenly, without thinking, you blurted out, "Yin, can I touch your biceps?" Jungkook looked at you with a mixture of done and surprise expression. "Jungkook, let's focus, Yin. We need to submit this list soon," he said, his voice steady but tinged with a hint of disbelief. You smiled, refusing to back down, and leaned in slightly. "Yin, how can I focus when you're sitting here looking like the most delicious meal I've ever seen?" Jungkook's ears turned red as your words hit him, and he felt a rush of warmth spread across his face. He tried to compose himself, ready to scold you for your shameless flirting. But before he could, a sudden arm wrapped around your shoulders. Hyunjin, your close friend, pulled you into a playful hug and grinned at Jungkook. "Hyunjin, hey, Jungkook, I'm borrowing her for a bit, hope you don't mind." Without waiting for a reply, Hyunjin took your hand and led you out of the classroom, leaving Jungkook staring after you both, his heart sinking. He clenched his fists, watching as Hyunjin held your hand, his thoughts spiraling. To anyone else, it would seem like you and Hyunjin were a couple. Just earlier, you had been flirting with him, and now this? The mix of jealousy and confusion stirred in his chest, but even with this discomfort, he couldn't deny that your playful words had a way of making his heart skip a beat. Jungkook sighed, forcing himself to focus on the task at hand, but the aching sensation in his chest refused to go away. He leaned back in his chair, rubbing the back of his neck as he stared at the half-filled spreadsheet in front of him. "Jungkook, come on, Jungkook, get it together. You know she likes you. She flirts with you all the time," he muttered to himself, trying to reason with the gnawing feeling inside. "Jungkook, but why does it bother me so much seeing her with Hyunjin? They're just friends, right? It's not like she's dating him." He clenched his jaw, remembering the way Hyunjin had wrapped his arm around you so casually, as if it meant nothing. "Maybe she's just messing around with me, or maybe she's not even serious about the things she says," he whispered under his breath, his gaze hardening. Jungkook sighed again, pushing his chair back from the desk. He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated with himself. "Jungkook, get over it. If she really likes me, then why am I feeling like I'm losing her to him? Maybe I should just tell her how I feel." His heart raced at the thought, but the uncertainty held him back. He shook his head, trying to refocus on the list in front of him. Meanwhile, you and Hyunjin made your way to the bleachers near the basketball court where the team was finishing up their practice. You both sat down, your eyes on Hyunjin's boyfriend, Joe, who was still on the court, laughing with his teammates. The relationship between Hyunjin and Joe was a secret, known only to a few close friends, including you. Hyunjin sighed heavily, his usually cheerful demeanor clouded with worry. "Hyunjin, I feel like Joe's been distant lately, like he doesn't care about me anymore." You frowned, trying to reassure him. "Yin, why are you thinking that? He's the one who asked you out in the first place, remember?" "Hyunjin, I know," Hyunjin replied, his voice tinged with doubt. "But lately, something just feels off, like he's pulling away." You thought for a moment before suggesting, "Yin, is that what you think, Okay, let's test it. If he comes to you after the match, everything's fine. But if he just waves from a distance or ignores you, then we'll know something's wrong. Don't worry, okay?" Hyunjin nodded, though his expression remained troubled. As the match ended, both of you waited for Joe to make his way over. But when Joe looked in Hyunjin's direction, he didn't smile or wave. Instead, he walked away, without even acknowledging him. His expression unreadable. Hyunjin's eyes welled up with tears, and he turned to you, his voice breaking. "Hyunjin, I told you something's wrong. He's ignoring me." You quickly moved closer, trying to comfort him. "Yin, hey, don't cry. Maybe he's just tired or stressed. We'll figure this out, okay?" Hyunjin shook his head, his tears falling more freely. Hyunjin, he's so bad, I hate him, you sighed, feeling both sympathy for your friend and a surge of determination. Yin, alright, we're going to fix this, I have a plan. You gave him a mischievous smile and winked. Yin, tonight is Sohee's birthday party. You know how big her parties are. Everyone's going to be there. We're going to make sure Joe realizes what he's missing. Hyunjin, but how? Hyunjin asked, wiping his tears. Yin, I'll tell you. Don't worry. Now let's go. Get you some ice cream. Hyunjin's face lit up at your words and he interlinked his arms around yours like a bestie. Hyunjin, you're the best. Back in the school's corridors, Jungkook was heading toward the exit when he ran into his friend Chan. Chan, hey buddy, Chan greeted, grinning widely. You're coming too. Sohee's birthday party tonight, right? Jungkook hesitated. Parties weren't really his thing, especially with the mood he was in. Jungkook, I don't think so, man. I've got work to do. Hyunjin, oh, come on, Chan pleaded. I'm planning to propose to her tonight, and I need someone to be there in case I make a fool of myself. Who's going to handle my drunk asses if she says no? Jungkook rolled his eyes but couldn't help smiling at his friend's persistence. Jungkook, fine, I'll go, but only because you need backup. Chan's face lit up with excitement. Chan, yes, it's going to be great. By the way, Yin, Hyunjin, Joe, and a bunch of others are coming too. Jungkook's heart skipped a beat at the mention of your name, though he kept his expression neutral. You and Hyunjin were walking hand in hand down the street towards Sohee's house, but Hyunjin's anxiousness was obvious. He kept glancing around, nervously, chewing his lip, and then suddenly asked, Hyunjin, Yin, what if we mess up? What if Jungkook misunderstands? You blinked in shock, not expecting Jungkook's name to come up, raising an eyebrow. You shot him a sarcastic look. Yin, Hyunjin, why are you suddenly bringing him up? He doesn't even like me back, remember? It's not like he's going to show up at a party, especially one like this. And girls, yeah, right, he'd rather die than come to a party full of them. You rolled your eyes playfully, shaking your head in disbelief. Trust me, he's not coming. Hyunjin just lowered his head and nodded, still not fully convinced but willing to let it slide for now. You both finally reached Sohee's house, and as you entered, Sohee immediately ran up to you both, wrapping her arms around you in a tight hug. She pulled back and gave you a knowing wink, her eyes sparkling with mischief. Hyunjin, oblivious to the silent exchange, frowned and asked, Hyunjin, hey, what's going on? Why are you both acting weird? Tell me. You just grinned and ignored his pleading, patting his shoulder. Yin, relax. Hyunjin, let's go sit down. The party was already in full swing, but there weren't as many people as you expected. Most of Sohee's friends had yet to arrive, but the vibe was still good. The birthday girl was doing her best to keep the energy alive as the cake cutting time approached, and soon enough, everyone gathered around, clapping and cheering as she blew out her candles. Sohee, thank you so much, everyone. After the cake was cut and everyone had a slice, the party began to slow down. People gathered in a circle on the floor, chatting and laughing when someone suddenly suggested, let's play truth or dare. Sohee, however, looked a little down as she sat with her arms crossed, biting her lip. You noticed right away and leaned over to her. Yin, what's wrong, babe? She pouted, letting out a dramatic sigh. Sohee, I invited so many people, but almost no one showed up. Minju, who sat next to Joe and Sohee, nudged her playfully. Minju, I don't know about that. Looks like everyone who matters is here, except Chan and Jungkook. At the mention of Chan's name, Sohee's cheeks flushed bright red. It was no secret that she liked him, and her friends loved teasing her about it. Sohee, it's not like that. I'm just mad. Yin, come on, Sohee, don't get all sad on us. They're just a couple of party poopers anyway. Let's get the game going. Meanwhile, Hyunjin was sneaking glances at Joe, his boyfriend, but Joe seemed distant, focused on anything but Hyunjin, which only made his worry deepen. So he perked up a little, and everyone agreed to start the game. The bottle spun in the middle of the circle, landing on different people as they took turns. With truth or dare, the mood lightened as people shared embarrassing stories or did silly dares. After a few rounds, the bottle stopped on Joe, sitting quietly beside Minju. Clara, one of Sohee's friends, grinned mischievously. Clara, okay Joe. Truth or dare? Joe. Truth, Joe muttered, clearly uninterested. Clara smirked. All right then. tell us, who's your current girlfriend? You instantly stiffened, your eyes narrowing as you stared at Joe, waiting for his answer. Hyunjin watched him with wide eyes, hopeful that Joe would finally acknowledge their relationship. Joe hesitated for a brief moment, his eyes flickering toward Hyunjin, but then he dropped his gaze and answered coldly, Joe, no one. Minju looked at Joe shocked. He literally dragged the man to the party so that Hyunjin and Joe can spend some time, but he looked disappointed. Hyunjin's heart shattered on the spot, his face falling as he tried to hold back his tears. Your blood boiled with rage, but you forced a smirk, gripping Hyunjin's wrist under the table before he could storm off. You gave him a sharp look, silently telling him to hold on, and then nodded towards Sohee, signaling her for the next part of the plan. The bottle spun again, this time landing squarely on you. Sohee grinned, fully aware of the plan, and asked, Sohee, truth or dare Yin? Without hesitation, you replied, dare. Sohee's grin widened, and she quickly glanced at Joe before turning to you. Sohee, all right. I dare you to give a hickey to the person sitting to your left. You laughed lightly, trying to act casual as Hyunjin turned toward you in confusion. Everyone in the circle gasped and chuckled, eyes widening with excitement. Without missing a beat, you leaned over and pressed your lips to Hyunjin's neck, your teeth grazing his skin before sucking gently, leaving a faint mark. Hyunjin froze in shock, his cheeks burning bright red as he pulled away, giving Joe a smug look. Joe's expression darkened as he clenched his fists, glaring at you and Hyunjin. Meanwhile, outside, Jungkook was cursing under his breath, kicking Chan's car in frustration. Jungkook, what the hell, Chan? I shouldn't have come with you. Chan, who was still fumbling with his phone, shrugged. Chan, we're late shit, so he's going to kill me. And besides, it's my big moment to propose, so stop whining. Jungkook rolled his eyes. He wasn't even sure why he was so worked up, but the idea of you at this party made his stomach churn with unease. As they reached Sohee's front door, they heard muffled voices from inside. Just as they were about to step in, Jungkook caught sight of you, sitting right next to Hyunjin, your lips on his neck. His entire body froze, his eyes widening in disbelief. What the hell? The sight of you with Hyunjin made something in his chest twist painfully. He felt a surge of jealousy he hadn't expected, and, before he could stop himself, he muttered, Jungkook, I think I left my phone in the car. I'll be right back. Chan, who was removing his shoes and was preparing his dialogues of sorry, said, Chan, yeah, whatever, just hurry. Jungkook practically bolted from the door, his heart racing as he rushed back to the car. The image of you and Hyunjin burned into his mind. His heart pounded painfully in his chest, his breath shallow as he gripped the car door. His hands shook slightly, and before he knew it, a tear slid down his cheek. He leaned against the car, trying to steady himself as he muttered under his breath, voice shaky, Jungkook, I should have buried these feelings. Should have known she'd never care. I'm just another game to her, another fool. Why did I let myself hope? Another tear fell, and he swiped it away angrily, frustration mixing with heartbreak. She doesn't want me anymore. She's just playing with me like everyone else. Jungkook's chest tightened painfully as the truth hit him hard. He bit his lip, feeling his emotions overwhelm him. Back inside, Hyunjin's heart was pounding in his chest, while Joe was clearly fuming. He also noticed how broken Hyunjin looked. Joe's anger finally snapped, and he stood up abruptly, pushing his chair back with force. I'm leaving. You guys continue without me. He stormed out, his face a mix of frustration and hurt. Hyunjin's heart sank further, torn between satisfaction and sadness. He watched Joe leave, biting his lip to stop his tears from falling. Sohee, not caring about Joe's tantrum, rolled her eyes and shrugged. Chan finally came rushing in out of breath. Chan, sorry, my car broke down. And Sohee looked at him in disbelief and rolled her eyes again. Sohee, I didn't ask for your excuses. Sohee replied coolly, cutting him off. Chan pouted, but she ignored him, turning back to the group with a smile. But in the background, Yin got frozen at her place, your heart suddenly pounding with a mix of dread and panic. You glanced at Chan, your voice shaky. Yin, did Jungkook come with you too? Chan, still catching his breath, nodded casually. Chan, yeah, he was here just before Joe left. He was at the doorsteps with me, but he said he forgot his phone and went back to get it. Your heart dropped. A cold realization washed over you, and without thinking, you muttered under your breath, he saw it. Without wasting another second, you bolted toward the door, panic gripping your chest as you rushed outside, desperately searching for Jungkook. But when you reached outside, he was nowhere to be found. Your eyes scanned the empty street, your heart hammering in your chest, but there was no sign of him. Hyunjin came out behind you, guilt written all over his face. Hyunjin, I'm sorry, Yin. Because of me, everything is messing up. You whipped around, scolding him but with a softer tone. Yin, Hyunjin, you're my best friend. I'll do anything for you. Don't blame yourself for this. And beside, Chan didn't know what we did, so there's a possibility Jungkook didn't see it, you said, trying to convince both yourself and Hyunjin. Hyunjin frowned, doubt still clouding his expression. Hyunjin, but why would he leave like that then? You bit your lip, suddenly unsure. Jungkook had never shown any sign of reciprocating your feelings, but his abrupt departure felt off. Yin, I don't know, you admitted, confusion creeping in. He's never reacted like this before. The next day, you walked into the classroom, your heart heavy with worry. You spotted Jungkook sitting at his usual desk, slumped over as if he hadn't slept all night. Hesitantly, you approached him, unsure of what to expect. Yin, Jungkook, you called softly, shaking him gently awake. He lifted his head slowly, his red, puffy eyes betraying the sleepless night he'd had. He gave you a simple nod in response to your question about whether he was okay but didn't say anything further. The air between you felt thick with tension. The teacher came in, and you noticed that Hyunjin was absent today, still recovering from the emotional mess of the previous night. Throughout the class, you tried several times to talk to Jungkook, but he completely ignored you, confirming what you dreaded most. He had seen everything. You wanted to explain yourself, but how could you? How could you tell him that the H key you gave Hyunjin was part of a plan to help your gay best friend, not something romantic? When lunch arrived, the classroom began to empty, and you watched as Jungkook packed his bag to head for the cafeteria. Desperate, you grabbed his arm from behind, ready to confront him. Yin, Jungkook, wait, let me explain, you began. But before you could finish, he yanked his arm away harshly. His eyes, usually so warm, were cold and filled with anger. Finally having enough of you. Jungkook, stay away from me, Yin. He growled, I've had enough of your games. I'm done being played by a playgirl like you. His words hit you like a slap in the face, cutting deep. Tears welled up in your eyes as you watched him storm off, leaving you frozen in place, heartbroken. You sat there for a moment, tears slipping down your cheeks, but determination quickly replaced your pain. You weren't going to let things end like this. Wiping your tears, you rushed to the cafeteria, scanning the room until you spotted him sitting with Chan. Yin, Jungkook, please, just listen, you pleaded, approaching him and tugging at his sleeve. He ignored you, focusing on his food. Frustration and desperation built inside you, and you nudged him again, harder this time. Yin, Jungkook, please, I need to talk to you. Without warning, he exploded, slamming his fist on the table and shouting, Jungkook, shut up and just leave. Yin. His voice echoed through the cafeteria, and the room went silent, all eyes on the two of you. You flinched as breath caught in your throat, and the humiliation and pain were too much to bear. You turned and bolted out of the cafeteria, tears streaming down your face. Jungkook's heart clenched as he saw you running away, but his anger still clouded his judgment. He grabbed his bag and stormed out, heading to the library in search of some peace. Meanwhile, Chan and Minju exchanged confused looks, still processing what had just happened. Minju, what was that all about? Minju asked, bewildered. Chan, I have no idea, Chan replied, shaking his head, but something's seriously off between them. Jungkook made his way to the library, hoping for some solitude to clear his mind, but your hurt expression replayed in his thoughts over and over. Again, each tear that had fallen from your eyes felt like a dagger in his chest, but he convinced himself that staying away from you was the right decision. He wandered between the shelves aimlessly, eyes scanning the titles, but never really focusing on anything. His mind was elsewhere, consumed by guilt and confusion. Just as he was about to leave, he heard faint groans and muffled voices coming from the corner of the library. Concern immediately flooded his senses, and he followed the sounds, his heart pounding. What could possibly be happening here? As he rounded the corner, his eyes widened, and his heart practically stopped. There, hidden between the bookshelves, were Jo and Hyunjin, locked in a passionate kiss, completely lost in each other. Jungkook froze, his brain short-circuiting as he tried to process the scene in front of him. Jo and Hyunjin quickly pulled apart, looking mortified at having been caught. The air was thick with embarrassment and tension. Hyunjin was the first to speak, his voice shaky and filled with remorse. Hyunjin, I'm sorry about yesterday, Jungkook. Hyunjin blurted out, his eyes pleading. What Yin did, it was for me. She wasn't trying to mess with you. I asked her for help. I love Jo, and Jo loves me too. Jungkook's heart sank at Hyunjin's words. Everything he had seen, everything he had assumed, had been completely wrong. Jo, who had looked so torn the day before, now stood there with guilt painted all over his face. He looked down at Hyunjin before speaking, his voice hesitant. Jo, I didn't know what I felt. I thought it was just attraction, something temporary, but seeing Hyunjin with Yin yesterday, it made me realize I should have been honest. I should have talked to him instead of pushing him away. Jungkook's chest tightened with each word. He had said such cruel things to you, and it was all based on a misunderstanding. His mind raced, filled with guilt and regret. He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated with himself. Jungkook, I've said so many horrible things to Yin. Jungkook muttered under his breath, feeling the weight of his actions press down on him. Without another word, he turned on his heels and bolted out of the library, his only thought being to find you. He fumbled for his phone, calling you again and again, but each time, it went straight to voicemail. His heart raced as panic set in. Meanwhile, you were sitting at the bus stop, your heart shattered into pieces. The cold wind brushed against your skin, but it did nothing to cool the burning ache in your chest. You sat there, hugging yourself, biting your lip to stop the sobs that kept coming. Tears streamed down your face, uncontrollably as you waited for the bus. Jungkook's harsh words, the humiliation, the pain, it was all too much. You wanted to disappear. Just as the bus was pulling up to the stop, you noticed a car approaching, but you didn't bother to look. You were too wrapped up in your thoughts, lost in the ache that had settled deep in your heart. It wasn't until the sound of a car door shutting and footsteps approaching reached your ears that you glanced up. Your heart skipped a beat when you saw who it was. Jungkook kneeling down in front of you, his eyes filled with worry and guilt. Before you could process what was happening, he pulled you into a tight embrace. The warmth of his body against yours broke the dam holding back your emotions, and you felt tears flood your eyes once more. Jungkook, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Yin. Please forgive me, Jungkook muttered over and over, his voice cracking with every word. He held you like his life depended on it, his arms strong and reassuring, but his heart was trembling. You were shocked, confused, and overwhelmed all at once. You hadn't expected this, his sudden appearance, his apology, or the way his embrace felt like home. But the pain inside you was too raw to hold back, and you found yourself sobbing into his shoulder, the tears flowing freely. Yin, I am not playing with you, Jungkook, you stammered between sobs, your voice shaky and broken. I'm not a playgirl. I really love you. I know you saw it yesterday, but I can't tell you why I did that. You hiccuped through your words, desperate for him to understand, even though you couldn't explain everything. Your confession hung in the air, and for a moment, you feared the worst. But instead of pulling away, Jungkook held you tighter, pressing a soft kiss to your forehead. Jungkook, I know Yin. I know now. Hyunjin told me everything, he whispered, his breath warm against your skin. His voice was thick with regret. I'm so sorry. I didn't listen to you. I was angry, and I let that anger take over. I said things I didn't mean, but I love you too, Yin. I've loved you for a long time. Seeing you with him, I lost control. It hurt too much. His words made your heart swell, but they also confused you. Did he really just say that he loves you too? You couldn't believe it. You pulled back, slightly, looking up into his eyes, searching for the truth in them. Yin, you love me, you asked quietly, your voice barely above a whisper as you wiped your tears and nose with the sleeve of your shirt. Jungkook smiled softly, his gaze never leaving yours. He reached up, brushing the stray tears from your cheeks with the pads of his thumbs. Jungkook, yeah baby, I love you. I love you so much. Your heart fluttered at his words, but you couldn't resist teasing him, trying to lighten the heavy moment. Yin, I don't believe you, you said, pouting as you broke away from the hug, your eyes glinting with a mix of relief and mischief. Jungkook chuckled, clearly caught off guard by your sudden shift in mood, but he couldn't help but admire the way you looked. eyes still wet, lips trembling, but full of life. He leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a low whisper in your ear. Jungkook, do you want to come to my place and find out just how much I love you? Hum. His breath tickled your ear, sending a shiver down your spine, your body reacting instantly to his proximity. Your lips were just inches from his, your heart racing as you nodded eagerly, biting your lips, a new excitement flooding your veins. He smiled, his lips curling into that signature grin that made your knees weak. Without another word, he took your hand and guided you towards his car, his touch firm yet gentle. As soon as you both entered Jungkook's home, the tension that had built up between you exploded in an instant. Without a word, you both lunged at each other, lips crashing together in a hungry, desperate kiss. His hands moved to your thighs, giving them a light pat, signaling for you to jump, and you instinctively wrapped your legs around his waist, holding onto him like a koala. The intensity between you only grew as you smiled into the kiss, barely catching your breath. Jungkook carried you effortlessly to the couch, laying you down gently but quickly enough to keep the momentum. His lips never left yours, his kisses becoming deeper, more urgent. Your tongues explored each other's mouths, the taste of him intoxicating, as if you couldn't get enough. His hands roamed over your waist, caressing and gripping as if to memorize every curve. He pulled away slightly, just enough to look down at you, his breath heavy, his gaze filled with nothing but affection and desire. Jungkook, you are so beautiful, you blushed at his words. But before you could respond, he kissed you again, this time with a tenderness that melted you from the inside out. His lips trailed down your neck, leaving a burning path in their wake. When he reached your collarbone, his kisses became more deliberate, teasing, making soft, involuntary sounds escape from your lips. He smiled against your skin, clearly loving the effect he had on you, and his hands continued to explore. Soon, the two of you were tangled together in his bed, the comfort of the mattress beneath you contrasting with the heat building between your bodies. Jungkook lay beside you, his arm wrapped around your waist, pulling you close. His hand gently traced patterns on your back as you both caught your breath, the world outside forgotten. Jungkook, Yin, he murmured softly, his voice low and filled with warmth. How about we skip college tomorrow and go on a date instead? You looked up at him, your heart fluttering at his words. The idea of spending the entire day with him, just the two of you, was more than tempting. You smiled, leaning in to kiss him again, this time softer, slower, savoring the feel of his lips against yours. When you finally pulled back, you rested your forehead against his. Yin, as my boyfriend says, you whispered playfully, your voice filled with affection. Jungkook's smile widened, and he kissed you again, his lips lingering on yours. He held you close, his hands stroking your hair as you both lay there,